Hi everyone, this is Adriano Goldman, Director of Photography of The Crown, and you're watching the Go Creative Show.
Hey everyone, my name is Ben Consoli. I'm a director and owner of BC Media Productions, and this is the Go Creative Show, a podcast for filmmakers. So today we're talking with Adriano Goldman, returning to Go Creative Show to talk about his work as director of photography for The Crown Season 4. And there's so much to get to with Adriano. He talks about, of course, how he captures the Princess Diana story, how he lights for these incredibly dark and unique scenes in the series. We talk about how he manages 4 cameras on set and so much more. You guys are going to love this episode. So I'm here with Adriano Goldman, the director of photography for The Crown, and so happy to have you back, Adriano. It was only just a few months ago that we had you here. I feel like everything in the world has changed.
Well, it does feel like a very different world when season 3 came out, last November, and now this one. It is a very different planet we live in, and it was a very different process throughout, especially doing post for season 4. Almost 100% of my post work, my grading work was done remotely. I feel very lucky because we actually could continue the work. We had to finish shooting this is mid-March. My last shooting day was the 14th of March.
Wow.
And then it was very lucky because then the UK came to a lockdown on the 23rd, I think just a week later than that. And then for a few weeks, I think the entire production was are we going to be able to deliver the season in November like promised? But the post supervisor and all the editors and the colorist and the VFX guys and the sound and music, they could somehow, more than a shooting crew can work. A shooting crew can never work remotely, but those guys can. And Netflix were really supportive, and so it was really a struggle, I imagine, but it did work. So even developing specific technologies so I could grade remotely. So I got a calibrated iPad was delivered to me, and I was having remote sessions, with this very precise link with no time delay with my colorist at Warner Brothers in Soho. So it was really interesting and efficient in a sense. And again, luckily enough, by the end of June, we had a little break on the overall lockdown protocols that allowed me to actually go to Warner Brothers for my final grading session. Because that's what you want to do. You want to be with your colorist and share the same monitor. Because although, we do believe in technology, but, different monitors, different links, different, distance. And so it's tricky. You think you're sharing the same reference, but it's not really precisely the same. So when you say less red here or less blue there, is it really the same image that he's seeing on the other end? But anyway, I think we made it very efficient. We know each other. We've been working for years and years. So my colorist, for instance, he really knows me, knows my taste. He knows the show really, really, really well. So I think, if this was the first season, I think we would all, have felt like the challenge would have been much more serious. But I think because this is a solid team that, have been working together for years now, I think we just made it work. It was a big team effort to be able to deliver it in November, and now here we are.
Yeah. So I'm curious, the iPad that first of all, you were given a calibrated iPad for your post-production color work. Was there a specific app that you were using?
Yeah, I think Warner Brothers and Netflix together, they developed, I'm sorry if I don't really know all the details in terms of the app development.
No, if you don't know, you don't know. I was just curious.
But it's fine. So my monitor really was technically mirroring the colorist monitor. I could even see the cursor, his cursor coming on my iPad screen, and all the power windows or the areas, because you can be very precise when you're color grading something. It's like the best Photoshop you can possibly get because you're grading it live. So it was really efficient. So whatever I could eventually ask him to do, I could physically, remotely, but I could see him doing it. So I think the workflow was, so the iPad, and I think the app is called Clearview.
Okay.
So the Clearview app was mirroring his monitor, and I had my laptop for communication. So it could be a Zoom call. So you don't use the same device for both. So one is the visual reference, and the other one is communication. So it was a nice little station I had at home with monitors and other devices. But it's really interesting. Yeah, I really like it. And also this somehow opens a kind of an entire new world of options for us DPs, because up to this point, you have to make yourself available to actually go to the grading sessions, wherever they are. I mean, I've done it so many times. I mean, I shot Burnt, for instance, here in the UK with John Wells, but I had to grade it at Technicolor LA. So I used to go to LA for 2 weeks. I mean, that was, if you're available to, they take you wherever. But now that's still very much my preference, but I probably don't need to be there for the entire duration. I can have a few remote sessions and then be present just for the last 2, whatever. What also allows me to be available for other stuff, and I don't need to. So it's very interesting. I think we all liked very much this new technology. There's limitations, of course, but it also frees us from actually having to be there physically every single day. So it's very interesting. I think it's good, especially, because it's so concerning for a DP when you shoot a film, and then you ask, for instance, when you wrap, you ask, when is my color grading happening? Yeah. And they say, oh, maybe April, maybe early May, or whatever. So how can I schedule that so far ahead? But then whatever happens now these days, I can say, okay, worst case scenario, we'll do it remotely. And we didn't have this option a year ago. So I think it's good. It's not ideal, but it's good. It gives us another option. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine there's also a benefit in looking at it on an iPad anyway, because so many people watch shows on their devices.
It's a very contemporary reference and a platform. Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah.
Now, you were involved in The Crown since season 1, so all the way through, you've been there. Can you talk to me about what is different about season 4?
I can try in a sense that, of course, I realize it's different. And I also see, I get feedback from people like even my sister, just a big fan. She doesn't work in the industry, but she's a big fan. And she comes back to me asking, what's different? What is the progression, visual progression? I think my point, that's when I say I can try, it's basically because I don't think all the decisions are conscious decisions. I think this is, of course, because we've been working together for so long and we want to challenge ourselves. We don't want to repeat ourselves, although there will be some visual elements that you repeat, some locations, et cetera, et cetera. But this was part of the challenge. I mean, how can the show evolve visually? I think initially you think, well, it's going to naturally evolve. The design evolves. For instance, on seasons 3 and 4, we could finally start embracing, like I told you when we spoke a few months ago, that we could finally embrace modern architecture, modern design. Yeah. When we leave the royal life, the royal family life, to visit other sets and other characters, you just see different texture. I think the first 2 seasons, they were much more, if that makes sense, much more period-like. Yeah. So we could consciously be more romantic. Even the way I was lighting it, and the filtration, and the choice for very old lenses. The Cook Pancras we had on the first 2 seasons, they were warmer. They were way more, I'm going to say, romantic. I think they almost like immediately deliver this period look. And then when we jumped to season 3, again, different period, different cast, etc. So my first choice was like trying to upgrade the glasses. So I still want to be period-like. I still want to feel the period sort of look, but I think I should move forward in time. So we moved to the Zeiss Super Speeds. I think they're still vintage. I mean, because this is 2020 and those lenses came out like in the 70s.
Yeah.
So they're still vintage, but they are sharper, they're more modern, they are faster than the Cooke Pencros. And they do deliver a more contemporary look. I think they do. And I've been using less and less diffusion on the lens. So the Zeiss Super Speeds, they are naturally soft lenses. I mean, soft in contrast, and they glow on the highlights, etc. So it felt to me that they were soft enough by nature that I didn't have to add much more filtration like I did on the first 2 seasons. So it's subtle. It really is subtle because we still rely very much on the muted colors, the lighting strategies, very much the same, lights coming from outside the windows or the practicals, and it should still feel very realistic and believable and almost touchable, right? But there is a natural kind of evolution that I somehow go with the design. So by studying and by being with Martin Childs, so closely during prep, I just realized that, okay, I can see things are changing, color, wallpapers, modern cars, modern furniture. So, it just feel pushed somehow to, bring something new. And again, and even like, even the technology throughout this for 4 or 5 years, in terms of like lighting technology, it changed. I mean, I used to rely much more on HMIs and tungsten sources on seasons 1 and 2. Now we rely very much more on LED sources. They're much faster to work with. They're, more controllable. You can change the color. So it just speeds things up. And I've never been really nostalgic in a sense that I don't need to be that accurate in terms of like using period sources for a period show.
Why?
So I think it's just because I'm very much interested on learning more about technology, and also you do realize by testing this brand new sources that you, especially even on a big show like The Crown, you still need the pace. You still need to deliver, 25, 30 setups a day. And I timing or saving time, for me is a very, very important thing, in a sense that I want to buy myself time to improve my shots. I want to be able to give the directors more time to work with the cast on set and rehearse. So I gain speed by working with LED sources. I mean, that's very clear. It's very clear how much faster it is. And you can easily mimic the HMIs and the tungsten sources by, modulating your color temperature and intensity. And I don't think you really miss that. But I know that some DPs do like to go back in time and try period sources. Maybe, I don't know, maybe for a feature film, maybe for a show where the director's style, and if you know that he's not after quantity, he's more after quality, then you can probably try a different strategy that is not so much about speed, it's much more about, period accuracy. But I'm not so much attached to that. Of course I am, because by choosing period lenses, you are somehow going back in time and, trying to recover or find again something that we used to see on the 70s and 80s in terms of like that sort of specific film texture. So of course, there's research in terms of how to achieve an interesting period look. But there's also the methodology, the need for speed, in a sense, the need for the consideration we all have for efficiency, but basically, I think one of my main considerations is to buy myself time and not struggle so much with technology, in a sense that, for instance, when you dim a tungsten source, the color changes. And now you have to think about an additional filtration to compensate for that extra warmth. And that's your time going, right? So the LED sources just allow me to do all that without having to do too much math, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It's just speed. It's just speed. It really is. Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're right. Those old lights, they do get more saturated kind of as you dim them down.
They do, really do. I mean, I still use filament bulbs on my practicals.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, you must be using period practicals. I mean, you have to be.
Oh, everything that is in shot is period.
Yeah.
100%. Even, I mean, that it's funny because about that, I am very, let's say, stubborn about, everything that is in shot should be period-like. So even the like they say the pearl bulbs or the frosty bulbs, I don't like them. I really think I should be able to see the filament, even through the lampshade, because that's more period-like. So I think in that sense, I'm very precise and I try to be very accurate. So everything that is in shot should be accurate, period.
Are you using, in those instances, are you using LEDs that are kind of meant to look like older lenses? I mean, older lights. I mean, you even see that just in Home Depot now. You can get lenses that kind of have that old-looking filament. From far away, it might translate. Just curious, or are you using those, or are you actually going back to original filament bulbs?
We did go back to original film bulbs. You can still find them in some stores here. And then my gaffer found a few, I think a 40 watt bulbs, 60 and 100. And then he bought, I don't know, maybe like about 100 of each.
Yeah.
So that could cover the whole season. No, we had to somehow find suppliers for those specific, old bulbs. I mean, they're brand new. I mean, you can still find them brand new, of course. You don't have to go to prop houses for the actual bulbs. But, more and more, it's very hard. I mean, let's say if I try to find them here near home, you just can't. You have to go to, bigger or more traditional shops, stores. Yeah.
What would you say was the biggest lighting challenge you had in season 4?
On the 5th episode, when Fagin breaks into the palace and they finally have that face-to-face conversation, Paul Whittington, the director, said, well, she's supposed to be asleep, so no pracs should be on. He agreed that whatever time that was supposed to happen, that it could be, so it didn't need to be necessarily nighttime. Because some days, like in London, if you break into a house at 6 a.m. or 6:30 a.m., could be still dark, right?
Yeah.
Like it is now, before the winter and during the winter. So I just said, look, can we just make sure that when he breaks in, it's after sunrise or it's just at sunrise? So I do feel some sort of presence of daylight outside the windows. Said, yeah, that's fine. So what is the actual light source then? So then we all agreed that the only light source would be one of the windows or the windows. But he would never open all the curtains because you wouldn't do that, right, if you're breaking in. But so he found a way to give him that action. So he crosses the room before she wakes up and opens just that, gap on the window. And that was pretty much the source.
Wow.
So we had to work the choreography around that narrow source to be able to make it work, because it's supposed to be dark, it's supposed to be backlit. But I remember when I say challenging, it's not because it was big, it's not the scale of it. It's not the number of lamps I had on my set, because sometimes it is about the size of your pre-light. It's about the size of the sequence. Oh, we spent a week shooting that. That's not the case. But that was so challenging for me. Am I going to like this? How am I going to, I'm going to now am I going to be able to convince the directors and the actors that they need to help me now? Otherwise, we're never going to see their faces. So it was really interesting, the first rehearsal, because effectively the set was dark.
Yeah.
Really, really, really dark. And then especially when you step out, for a coffee, and then you come back in like, is this really it? I mean, even for me, it was like, oh my God, what am I doing? But then because of the precision that Paul Whittington blocked the scene, I was kind of little by little able to enjoy it and embrace the challenge. So instead of like, oh my God, is this going to work? I was actually, little by little, you start enjoying how different it looks and how different that is from my usual work and how new that was to me as a challenge. So that's when you feel the excitement. Sometimes the challenge is kind of a little bit overwhelming. Again, not because of the size, but because of the way it should look. I remember once, like years ago, reading a script and then right after having a meeting with the then writer-director. And that was, I'm not going to name names, but really experienced scriptwriter, such a nice guy, really, really clever. But he was about to direct his first film, right? So we had a meeting and I thought, this is a different conversation because you're now the director, right? So, and can I just make one note about your script? And he said, yeah, because now you're a director. So I think the question makes sense.
Yeah.
There's one line on your script that says, in the darkness, we see. So my question to you now as a director is that, what does that mean? Because if you tell me, let's go pitch black, I don't want to see anything. I want a black canvas, right? And I just want to hear the voices. So that's one thing. The other thing is we can find a way to give your character a lighter. So in pitch black, this flame comes up. Or we could do it day for night. So we shoot it at day, grade it down, so you see the world, but it still feels like night. The audience will buy that as nighttime. It's film nighttime. And it was really mind-blowing for him. He said, oh, yes, because our job is to translate that document into imagery, right? But that was so new to him. Because you can write whatever you want, right? In darkness we see. That works for literature, right? For, a romance, a book, but doesn't necessarily work on the filmmaking world. So what is the translation for that? So that's the thing, that kind of challenge is the ones that really interest me. So when Paul Whittington came with that challenge, I don't want any practicals on. I want him to open just a crack on the curtain. I was like, oh, how am I going to do this? So I remember that being really vividly a specific sort of feeling, the challenge and the technicalities and the solutions we had to find. It was really, really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything has to change. You have to make sure that they're facing the right way so that they get a little bit of the light on them. Actually, one of the thing that I love the most of that whole scene, honestly, is that little bit of red that comes through on those curtains before he opens them up. Like
Correct.
There's just such a richness in that color. And it's amazing to me that in a night scene, you're still able to get so much out of it. That was my favorite part of that whole scene. And I remember watching that and thinking like, they are really putting themselves in a corner with this scene because now you can't light from anywhere else. Like that's it.
No, the first time he breaks in, that's all night for night. And so you don't get the reds on the curtains. It's just pitch black outside.
Yeah.
When he actually have so that was the only kind of, when we approached this challenge first, I said, is that happening at night as the first one? Said, no, that could be the break of dawn. Because then, the maid comes in with tea. So that should be just before 7. I was like, oh, that's something. That's a start point
Yes.
for me, right? Yeah. Oh, the maid. Yeah, the maid. She would never come before 7, right? Yeah. No, she comes at 7. Okay, great. So he breaks in is like 6:30, let's say. So that gives me that excuse. So it's already daytime, etc. So yeah, it was really challenging. It's funny how, again, going back to scale, not always, the big sets are the most challenging ones, funny enough. Some of the big sets on The Crown, we somehow know how to like them, because we've been to those locations before, and I know my source is going to be outside, that a show like The Crown gives me the infrastructure I need. When I need the big sources outside, I know, I'm going to have them somehow. So it's funny how sometimes just the more intimate scenes can be more challenging. It was really good, that one. Really interesting scene to shoot, yeah.
I want to talk about one of the bigger scenes in The Crown, and it's Princess Diana's wedding, because this is the season that everybody was waiting for, because this is the Princess Diana season. So everyone has been waiting for this. I'm sure there's just so much pressure on your end to have everything be perfect, because people have a relatively fresh memory of these moments, and you need to replicate them. And that audiences are going to be paying very close attention to how accurate you are.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Talk to me about how it was to make this Princess Diana story come to life.
Well, I think luckily for me, I shot for the first time on, the 4 seasons I've been working on. This was the first time that I shot 5 episodes back to back. So the first 5. And that's, let's say, that covers apart from at 5 itself, that I don't think there's any shots with Diana on 5. But anyway, the first 4 introduced this young Diana. And then after the 6th, you get, a more mature, and you see even visually, then she gets pregnant as William comes up, etc. So I think the season covers 11 years or maybe 10 years of that part of the story. But I was actually really happy and not surprised, because I think Peter Morgan really has this kind of ability of surprising even us. I mean, when you read the script, like, where's the wedding? Where's the wedding? Where's the wedding? Oh, there's no wedding. So there's the rehearsal for the wedding, but not the wedding itself. And it's funny, again, because I like the informality of being there. I mean, when you first cut to Diana waiting for Charles to arrive for the rehearsal, she's just sitting on a like a step, the informality that Peter Morgan delivers, and the way that Ben Caron directs the actors. So I really like that more the family side of the story instead of the grand side of the story.
Well, it makes them relatable. The more of that,
and that's the side of the story that the audience doesn't know. Nobody actually saw that rehearsal, so that's you're just basically delivering new information, new texture, new circumstances, right? But we knew that we had to somehow suggest the grandiosity of the day, the next day. But also because we've been so many times, there has been so many funeral ceremonies on The Crown, that we go to the big cathedrals, etc., was actually kind of relieving to me to know that, we're not going to shoot the marriage or the ceremony, the wedding itself, because, again, I really like those scenes, because they are the actual grand, the big ones, even for the rehearsal itself, Ben, the amount of light that we had outside that church, it's just ridiculous, So in order to keep the set free again, so the actors can move around and you can shoot freely, you gain speed by doing that. So that's the big setup. But it's less exciting to me, funnily enough, than the Fagin and the Queen sort of scene. I really enjoyed being there with Diana and Philip, and I think Ben was really clever to somehow pay tribute to the scene we saw in season 1. There was also the rehearsal where the young Philip, Matt Smith Philip, comes to the church, and he's asking her, "Look, I'll be there, but I don't want to kneel before you." And she said, "No, well, you have to, because you're not kneeling before me, you're kneeling before the Queen." So somehow the Diana Charles scene mimics the Queen and Philip scene we had on season 1, where they move away from the family for a little bit more privacy. So that was an interesting kind of a way of mirroring, the mother and father to Charles and Diana. So it's so full of texture, and it's so interesting the way Peter, writes the story, and it's just every single. That's why we all keep coming back to the show, because that you never feel you're repeating yourself. You never get bored. Like, oh, I've been here so many times. Even the private rooms at the Buckingham Palace, the Queen's bedroom, Philip's bedroom, some of the tea rooms that we have on the show constantly, those are built sets. But again, going back to the Fagin and the Queen scene, I've had shot on that set so many times before, and then here I am, feeling very challenged by this, the way that Peter writes the scenes, right? So again, it keeps giving us challenges and excitement. It really, really is amazing. And I'm sure, I think season 4, I can say it's my favorite. I think, my 5 episodes on season 5, I'm so proud of them. I think they're very mature. I think they do deliver a more mature film style. I really do. I think the actors are better than they were in season 3. I think the age is more appropriate for Olivia and Helena and Tobias. They are supposed to be 50-some now in season 4. So they really, they're more relaxed about, the overall performance and body language, etc. So I think we all felt much more, I'm going to say relaxed, but confident. And again, going back to your first question, not all the decisions, visual decisions, I don't think we keep asking ourselves all the time, does this look new enough? I mean, is that the goal? Is the goal to deliver something that looks fresh and new? And again, it's another good opportunity for us to technically check what we want. So should I change my lenses again? Should I, so maybe. So we don't repeat ourselves.
Let's talk about that, lenses, camera. I want to learn more about what you shot on from a camera perspective, and also what you talked a little bit about the lenses, how you've now doing super speeds in season 4, but your camera package, what did you shoot season 4 on, and how does it differ? Does it differ from what you did on season 1 through 3 of The Crown?
Well, I know that's a little confusing, but maybe it isn't. So seasons 1, 2, and 3 was shot on the Sony f55. So seasons 1 and 2 with the Cooke Pancros. Mm-hmm. So Cooke Pancros f55 for seasons 1 and 2. Season 3, still f55, but then we moved to the Zeiss Super Speeds. New cast, new lenses, but still the same bodies, right? Why? By then, on season 3, the Sony Venice had come out already, but again, even on a big show like The Crown, we hadn't, the budget just couldn't contemplate that upgrade because we have 4 camera bodies per unit on The Crown, and going up from 4 f55 bodies to 4 Venice bodies, there was a massive jump in cost. So I said, okay, I'm going to change my glasses, but I'll stick with the f55. And then throughout the season, I was honestly all throughout the season working with my producers saying season 4 needs to be done on the Venice. They're almost discontinuing the f55 now. And you tell people that you're doing this on the F55, that you see the eyes. Are you really? You do the crown on the F55?
Yeah.
And so we moved. Initially, that happened because when I started on season 1, because of the Netflix 4K workflow, I had to, of course, test and rely on cameras that could deliver 4K. But I kind of enjoyed working with the F55. Then we tested the Sony Venice during season 3, and I was really, really surprised and really happy with the massive improvement that Sony did from the 55 to the Venice. And then throughout, I also had to work the budget, and eventually just work with my producer was the best way to upgrade my equipment for season 4. So season 4 was shot on Zeiss super speeds, like season 3, same cast, same lenses, but we upgraded the camera bodies to the Sony Venice. And I really fell in love with the Sony Venice. I really enjoy using the equipment. I'm now prepping for another big series, and I kind of said that I had a preference for the Sony Venice, and we made it work. I mean, we shot comparison tests, etc. Because I'm prepping now for a show that it's a different genre for me. It's the first time I'm doing sci-fi-ish shows, and so I felt to me that I on anamorphic lenses now. So initially, there was too much novelty. I mean, not that I'm not used to working with anamorphic lenses, but coming from the crown, after years using spherical lenses, vintage glass, etc., etc. So again, I'm still using vintage anamorphic lenses because I do have a preference for the softness and the soft contrast, etc. But it just felt to me, if I could use the Venice, that would somehow give me peace of mind, so I don't have to test it so deeply. So I'm just bringing a piece of equipment that it feels familiar to me, especially now. So I'm probably going to go back and vary and use ARRIs, depending on the project, depending on the texture, the look, or whatever. I'm actually happy to be able to bring a piece of equipment that I enjoy working with, and it's now much more familiar in terms of all the information and the features are in my brain now, so I don't have to, think so much. And also, again, going back to my point, it gives me more speed, really helps me to speed things up. It's a very clever piece of equipment as well. So it's an interesting combination now, the anamorphic lenses with the 4K. I'm still shooting 4K on this next job. I could shoot 6K on the Sony Venice. But again, then the workflow gets a little too heavy. I was actually initially thinking about mixing 70mm lenses and the 2-time anamorphic, so I would have two kind of different size file sizes. So 6K for the 75mm lenses, 4K for the 2-time anamorphic. And then throughout my prep, all together, me, the VFX department, and production, we just thought it might be a little too much. It just turns my life a little too complicated. 2 sets of lenses, and now you're mixing 6K and 4K on the same set. It's just it's fancy. It's really cool to be able to have different glasses and etc. But again, I'm so very much driven by, of course, the look, but also efficiency and speed. So all that makes part of my preparation, and what's the best piece of equipment, what's the best lighting equipment, what is the best approach to this show, especially, again, repeating myself, because it's a new genre for me. So I really had to check myself in terms of what are my priorities, how am I going to be confident enough that I can still work on a nice pace, on a new show. With anamorphic glasses, they're much slower than the super speeds, way slower. Yeah. Some of my lenses are 3.5 now compared to the 1.3 I have on the, So it is a different kind of a mindset, even a creative mindset, where you have to work with your levels a little bit higher than I work on the crown. So, but it's, again, I love the challenge. I actually chose to be doing this because it's new. Because
what's the name of the show?
I'm not sure I can. It's a series on the Star Wars universe.
Oh wow!
But
are you doing it for Disney Plus?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. 12 episodes, written and show ran by Tony Gilroy. So it's really, I just don't want to give you the main title because I think it could change. Basically.
I understand. Yeah.
But it's a series on the Star Wars universe. Yes.
So you're prepping that now.
I am prepping. It's actually principal photography starts next Monday, the 23rd of November.
Fantastic. That's great news. Congratulations. My God, that's a great franchise to be part of.
It really is. It really is. And again, it's also, of course, it's Star Wars, this unbelievable opportunity for me. But I'm also very thrilled of being working because I'm working with Tony Gilroy. And I promise you, like, Michael Clayton is one of my favorite films. And I really, really, I have enjoyed, watching Tony Gilroy's films and the way he writes. And this is the series I'm working on now. It's a series for grown-ups. It really is. I mean, the dialogues are absolutely solid and deep. So, it's a very strong material. So I'm really happy. It's not only because I'm doing Star Wars, because it's exciting in itself, but the quality of the writing it's mind-blowing. It really is.
Yeah.
Really, really strong stuff. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a great project. You've got to promise us you'll come back and talk to us about it. Are you doing all the episodes?
I'm doing 6 of 12.
Wow, that's great.
So again, trying to embrace this kind of a lead DP role because I'm shooting the first 3 episodes and I had the long prep. So, with Tony and Toby Haynes, that is the director that is directing the first 3 now. So, and I'm directing I'm DPing 1, 2, and 3, 8, 9, and 10.
Oh, great.
So, and there's another 2 DPs doing 3 episodes each. So I'm the only one doing 6. So yeah.
Well,
it's a very interesting. It's a bit massive responsibility, but I'm just over the moon. I'm really enjoying this so much. Yeah,
I can tell you're excited about it. Just as you're talking, you're lighting up. So, absolutely, when that thing is done and out, I would love to have you back on to talk about it. Just now, I know you only have a couple minutes left. Before you go, I just wanted to ask you about the way you had mentioned that you have 4 cameras, 4 camera bodies for each crew on the Crown. How are you organizing those cameras? Are they all rolling at the same time? Are they how are you organizing that?
Now, I can tell you it's much simpler than that because we shoot the show with 2 cameras.
Okay.
But philosophically, what we say is a camera is the camera that tells the story. So that's the director's camera. That's where he focuses his attention. The B camera is always offering a different angle or an insert. It could be just the queen's finger on that button. Well, really, we're gonna really be focusing only on that throughout the whole scene. Well, yes, because you need it to start it and to finish it.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just an insert. Of course, that insert can be done later, but you just want it eventually, or it's a profile shot that really doesn't compromise my lighting on. And again, because I've been working with the same crew, especially the B camera, he knows where to place himself. But basically it's a 2 camera show. The third body, it's for Steadicam or crane work. So it's always pre-rigged on the truck on the Steadicam. So we don't have to wait for those famous 30 minutes to rig the third or the second body on the Steadicam or the crane. The fourth body is technically an insurance body. So if something happens with one of the other 3, then you can go and take it out of the case. But again, because we've been working together, the ACs, they managed to be able to accessorize almost 4 bodies. So we can even have one rigged on the Steadicam and one being rigged on the crane, if that's the case. But apart from scenes where we have 300 extras, or where there's actual demand for more coverage, I don't think I've ever used 4 bodies on the same scene. We do use 3 eventually on the exteriors when we have the opportunity of going wide and etc. But I think the whole look, what was so unique, I'm going to say, when we came when we came with season 1, is that because that's something we purposely and consciously decided. This should look and feel like a single camera show. So every shot is a dedicated shot. So in opposition to the TV style, where you do have 3 cameras almost all the time, and then you compromise your backlights because, how can you possibly light for 3 different angles?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. So it's a single camera show that you get a bonus shot eventually from B camera. You get a nice profile. You get a transition, or you drift from the Queen's hand to a profile. So it's just additional, hopefully sophisticated shots that don't look like a B camera shot. They should also look like dedicated shots. Yeah.
So like when you're just doing simple dialogue, 2 people talking, is your B camera not even getting the other person? Your B camera's purely getting a detail?
Well, that's my goal, to never cross shoot. So we do eventually have, when you have 2 people face to face sitting on a restaurant, eventually that gives me the opportunity to cross shoot. But the A and B are always aiming to the same character. So one is a little bit front on over someone else's shoulder, and B camera is a little more profile-y, or a 3/4 single, let's say. But again, going back to my philosophy, A camera is the director's camera that tells the story. B camera is my camera.
Yeah.
So I
the fun
have the privilege. The fun camera. Yeah. So you got it. You know it.
That's right. Well, The Crown, all 4 seasons are available now on Netflix, and I strongly encourage you guys, check it out. It's a fantastic show. You already know it and you already love it, and that's why you're watching us today. Adriano Goldman, ASC, BSC, ABC. Any other letters we can throw in there? MD, were you a doctor too?
I hope not. I don't know. I mean, it's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege, but it's almost fun. It's almost funny now, isn't it? Yeah. But but those letters, those credits, ASC, BSC, they are, for us DPs, they are like kind of,
they are
medals that you carry on your chest. So we're all very proud of
Please,
those.
if I had any of those, I would be. That's the first thing I would say.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a massive honor for me coming from South America to be a member of my Brazilian association, and this very solid, prestigious associations like the ASC and the BSC. So I couldn't be more honored. And it's always a pleasure, Ben, talking to you. So I hope we have another opportunity soon.
I would love that. And thank you so much, Adriano Goldman. Your work is absolutely fantastic. And of course, we'll put links to all of your stuff on the show notes for today's episode. But until next time, Adriano, thank you so much. And we love the show here at Go Creative Show. And definitely, we got to have you back for your Star Wars secret project that you can't tell us about.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much to your audience as well. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank Adriano Goldman for coming back on the Go Creative Show to talk about The Crown Season 4. Now, for those of you guys that are interested, we also did an interview with him not that long ago, back in May 2020, so just a few months ago, to talk about The Crown Season 1 through 3. So if you are Crown-obsessed people and want to get into the nitty-gritty of the previous seasons, it's all there at gocreativeshow.com. And of course, we'll put a link to that episode in the show notes for this episode. I want to thank our producer, Connor Crosby, for putting this whole thing together behind the scenes. You can find him at ignitionvisuals.com. And of course, Matt Russell, who mixes, masters, and makes the show sound so good. You can find him and his team over at gainstructure.com. Of course, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. I also want to thank our sponsor, MZ Education for Creatives. Without these guys, the show would not exist. So please support those that support us. And that way we can keep pumping out these episodes for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week on another episode of Go Creative Show, a podcast for filmmakers.